permission, sir.
Yes, madam, please.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Thanks for your patience.
Good morning, one and all. Myself, Dr. Pankajakshi Baike, Vice Principal and the Professor and Head of the Department of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery, College of Dental Science and Hospital, Amargat, on behalf of our management, KJ Mehta TB Hospital Trust, and the entire institution, welcome our Honorable Speaker, Dr. Abhay N. Datarkar, who readily agreed to enlighten us with his views, opinions, and experience on mucormycosis, the much booming topic of today. Hearty welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, madam.
I extend my warm welcome to all my colleagues, friends, students, and of course, all the participants from various parts of India for today's webinar session. Before we move on to the lecture, I'd like to introduce our speaker. And it's indeed my pleasure and honor to introduce Dr. Abhay Sir with such a potential credentials. Dr. Abhay Datarkar completed his BDS and MDS in the subject of oral and maxillofacial surgery from Government Dental College and Hospital, Nagpur. And he is one of the first to clear DNB in Central India in 2003. He got the gold medal during post-graduation by Nagpur University and was also the Best Student Award winner of the Nagpur University in 1998. He was bestowed with an award of Best Oral and Maxillofacial Surgeon in 2013. Dr. Datarkar is a recipient of fellowship from Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons, Glasgow, UK. He has done his fellowship in craniofacial surgery at Nationwide Children's Hospital, Columbus, Ohio State University. He is also a recipient of Young Achievers Award by Academy of Medical Sciences, Nagpur. Maharashtra University of Health Sciences awarded Best Teacher Award to him amongst the Faculty of Dentistry in 2016. He is an orator par excellence and delivered many keynote and guest lectures at international and national forums on various topics of craniomaxillofacial surgery. He has authored book on exodontia practice, which is one of the best sellers in India and abroad. He has a 50 international and 68 national publications to his credit in various journals of maxillofacial, plastic, cleft, and implantology. He is on the editorial board of many international journals and also an associate editor of Journal of Maxillofacial and Oral Surgery. He is the recipient of a traveling fellowship of Department of Science and Technology, Government of India under the scheme of Science and Engineering Research Board for his research on cleft lip and palate surgery. Dr. Abhay Datarkar has strived over many years to raise the profile and standard of the specialty and has trained numerous young surgeons. He has also trained the general dental practitioners for implantology training in India. He is catering the people of Central India the maxillofacial surgical procedures like maxillofacial trauma, jaw tumor surgery, orthognathic surgery, cleft lip and palate surgery, oral malignancies, TMJ surgeries, and oral implantology. He is practicing cranio-maxillofacial surgery since 22 years in the Nagpur. Currently, he is working as a professor and head, Department of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery, Government Dental College and Hospital, Nagpur, and recently confronted the International Board Certification for Specialists in Maxillofacial Surgery by International Association of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery. We are indeed honored to have such a dynamic personality on the platform today, and of course, anybody would agree that it requires a lot of efforts and dedication to attain such wonderful credentials. Thanks for being here, sir. And of course, I know people are eagerly waiting to hear from you. Over to you, sir, for further deliberation. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. Can you just stop sharing your screen so that I will
Yeah,
share
sure.
my
Sure.
presentation?
Sure.
Hmm? Yeah. Thank you so much. Am I audible to you?
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're audible, sir.
So, with the permission of the chair, we'll start the session for today. At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Pankaj Akshi ma'am for this particular opportunity to share whatever we are learning in this particular, what we call it as the oral epidemic today. A moment. And hello? Yeah. And thank you for inviting me for this particular webinar today. I thank all the dean and the faculty members of the College of Dental Sciences, Amargarh, Bhavnagar, for this particular opportunity. So with this, I would like to start my presentation for today, and I thank Dr. Pankaj Akshi for a wonderful introduction. Uh, so all of us know, like everywhere, we are talking about this particular disease, what we call it as the mucormycosis today. In the beginning only, I would like to mention here that we are still in a phase of learning. Even after seeing around 67 patients and operating around 25, 26 patients, we are still in a phase of learning. Now, why it is so? Because if you will ask me personally, in my career of 20, 22 years, I have not seen more than 12 to 15 patients of the osteomyelitis of the jaw, mainly because of the mucormycosis. Okay. So it was comparatively one of the rarest disease which we used to see in our dental OPDs in the previous years before COVID. But in after COVID pandemic, in COVID-19 pandemic, especially in the second wave, where there was a mutant variant of this coronavirus, that is SARS-CoV-2 virus, and after getting infected with the COVID-19 infection, many patients who started reporting with some complaints related with the teeth, with the sinuses. We are going to talk in details about all these things. And then subsequently, they were diagnosed as a case of the mucormycosis. Now, if you see what is this COVID-19 infection, it is nothing but it's an infectious disease which is caused by a recently found virus, which what we call it as a SARS-CoV-2 virus or a coronavirus. Why it is called as a coronavirus? Because it looks like, because of the spike proteins which are present in the virus, it looks like a crown of a king, and that's the reason why it is called as coronavirus. So before the outbreak of this particular disease, and we know it was in China in December 2019, exactly 1.5 years back, in Wuhan state, there was an outbreak of this particular virus, and then from there, the virus spreaded like anything, and it has engulfed the whole world today. And obviously, because of that, everyone is suffering, and this pandemic and the effect of this pandemic on the human life and everywhere we are all experiencing, and we are all like seeing it today. There are many published medias like e-media, print media, news media, and there is lot of what I will say chaos about this particular disease entity. Okay, what I mean to say here is like what is our aim as the healthcare workers, as the maxillofacial surgeons, as the dental surgeons. Like instead of making a panic of this particular disease, let us try to spread a word where we can actually make the people aware of what is this particular disease, and if this particular mucormycosis is diagnosed at the earliest stage, you take it from me, it is one of the most curable, and the fatality is not there, and the prognosis of the patient is very, very good. So we should use the media for making the people more aware about this particular disease, and early diagnosis can help us in bringing a better outcome, better prognosis for all these patients. Okay. Now, as I told you, this was very rare. Okay, like we know there are bacterial infections, there are fungal infections, there are viral infections. Okay, especially for the undergraduate students, Take an example, tuberculosis is a bacterial infection which is caused by the Mycobacterium tuberculosis bacteria. Okay, viral infection we know, like we are seeing in day in and day out, that is a SARS-CoV-2 virus causing COVID-19 infection, and this is the new infection what we are seeing nowadays since last almost 2 months. That's called as a fungal infection. Okay, if you ask me personally, in my 22 years of experience, we always used to see a white fungus, what is called as a white fungus, and a black fungus, which is very well popular. Every public, every person, layman knows what is white fungus and black fungus. So everybody, even all the faculties will also agree with me. We used to see many cases with the candidial infection. So that is what we call the white fungus. Okay, inside the oral cavity, there was the white patches which is scrapable, and this particular disease, what we call it as a white fungus or the candidiasis, okay, which is caused by the Candida albicans. Okay, but mucormycosis, as I told you, was comparatively very rare, and this is a fungal infection that is caused by a group of the molds called as the mucormyces. Okay, in the beginning, I would like to mention there are different classifications of the fungal diseases and the fungi which are causing these diseases, but for the purpose of our knowledge, there are three important molds of the fungus. The one is the Candida albicans, as I told you. The second one is the mucormyces, and the third one is what we call it an aspergillosis. Okay, which is again we are getting the patients of the aspergillosis. I will talk in short about aspergillosis during the end of this presentation. Okay. Now mucormycosis or this mucorites, these are the fungi which are found everywhere in the environment. Like we know, this fungus is present everywhere. It is present in the air, it is present in the food, it is present in the soil, it is present on the walls, everywhere it is present. Okay. Now, what is very important, though it is present in the everywhere around us, it was not causing any kind of symptoms or any kind of life-threatening conditions in the human beings. Okay, and that is the reason why all these diseases, they are called as an opportunistic infections. Okay. Healthy patients do not react to these fungi. Okay, so that's the reason why we are not having an infection because of this fungus which is present everywhere in the environment, because we consider ourselves as a healthy person. But there are people with a weaker immunity who are susceptible for this particular disease of mucormycosis, which is caused by a mold of fungus called as a mucormyces. Okay, and it is only a life-threatening disease, an opportunistic infection, and which is invasive in nature. Now, what do I mean by life-threatening? Because it may cause a fatality of the life, and the literature says, I have gone through a lot of literature. Literature says the fatality of this particular disease might be up to 50%. Okay, in different cases. Okay, it is an opportunistic infection. Now, why opportunistic? Especially in post-COVID, it is all those patients who got COVID-19 infections, they are getting infected with this particular mold of a fungus, and it is an invasive nature. Now, invasive in nature means if this particular disease is not properly controlled with the help of the surgical procedures, with the help of the medicines, it may spread, like we know, like how the malignancy spreads. Okay, so that's the reason why it is called as an invasive infection, and it may lead to a dissemination of this particular fungus to a different part of the organs of the body. Okay, I will show you one of our patients where it is disseminated to the lungs. Okay, so that's the reason why we have to be very precautious while diagnosing and while managing this particular disease. Okay, now Roden et al. In 2005, he has given a newer classification of this particular mold of the fungus. Before 2005, this was also called as a zygomycosis, okay, or mucormycosis, and these are the two different variants of the fungi basically which are present in this particular mucormycosis and entomophthalmomycosis. Okay, but after 2005, it was renamed, it was reclassified as a mucorales, and out of these mucorales, these are the different species which you can see on my screen, and Rhizopus species, and then other species of this particular disease, which are common and which are causing this particular disease, what we call it as mucormycosis. Okay, we must learn how this particular disease spreads. Okay, and for that we must know how is the pathophysiology of this particular disease. Okay, so whenever there is a susceptible host, there are 4 different ways how this particular fungus can be spreaded. Okay, and what are these ways? One is the inhalation, like we are inhaling the normal oxygen, normal air which is present in and around the environment. Okay, the second one is the ingation, like if you are eating some food. Take an example, the apple is a common source of the this particular fungus. Okay, so if the food is not properly washed, or it is not properly what I will say cooked, then through that particular food, this fungus may go into our gastrointestinal tract. It might be an implantation. Implantation means, suppose children are playing in the soil where the soil is having the fungus, and there are few surgical cuts, the cuts in the skin or something like that. The fungus may get inoculated or implanted into that particular skin. So that is called as the implantation. And inoculation, especially like how the HIV spreads with the help of the needles. If any infected needle from this fungal infection can be inoculated to the different human being. Okay. So most of the students, UG, PG, these are the 4 different ways how the mucormycosis spreads to the person. Okay, and the very important pathophysiology of this particular disease is like how it spreads. So there is an angio invasion. We are going to talk in detail. After angio invasion, it shows its localized effect in the area where it is inoculated or implanted. After that, it gets spread with a hematogenous route, like how I told you, like malignancy spreads, and then after hematogenous dissemination, it will involve the different organs. Okay, mainly the mucormycosis classified depending upon which are the organs involved, like rhinocerebral or the rhinocerebro-orbital mucormycosis, pulmonary mucormycosis, gastrointestinal mucormycosis, cutaneous, disseminated, and the others. What we are going to talk in detail in this today's webinar is regarding the rhinocerebro-orbital mucormycosis, which we are seeing in and day night in our OPDs since last 2 months. Now, what are the targeted systems? Rhinocerebral, like we know, whenever the craniofacial skeleton is involved, it is rhinocerebral. The name itself indicates. Pulmonary means the lungs are involved. Cutaneous means the skin is involved, which might be primary or the secondary. Gastrointestinal mucosis, which is comparatively less common than the other clinical forms, but when the gastrointestinal tract is involved, and disseminated, which may involve the brain, the other important organs like the spleen, heart, lungs, and other things. Okay, so these are the different types of the organs which are involved with this particular mold of fungus, what we call it as a mucorelate, leading to a mucormycosis involving that organ. Okay, this is again published in one of the good paper by Challa et al. And which was recently published in 2019. Okay, now what is common in post-COVID infection? Now why? Well, like, it is very important for us to know after COVID infection why this particular disease is outburst like anything. Okay, so there are multiple theories which are being discussed in the media, social media, on WhatsApp and the Facebook, and amongst our peer colleagues we discuss many different theories. Okay, so the 2 most important, what I think, and which are again reported recently into 2021 in one of the systematic review from the Postgraduate Institute of PGI Chandigarh, and that review says the immunosuppression, which is caused by mainly glucocorticoids, increases in the innate state of the immune suppression. Okay, and all these patients, they were common having a predisposing factor, that is diabetes mellitus, which was present in 60 to 80% of the patients. Okay, so if we see in our registry, all 67 patients, most of them were diabetic, around 60 to 80% were diabetic, and around 90-95% undergone the steroid therapy for the infection, what we call it as the COVID-19 infection, because it is said that for the acute respiratory distress syndrome, the corticosteroids is the drug of choice, and that can be a life-saving drug. Okay, so what is important is, like, if we see whenever the steroids are given, there will be immune regulation get depressed, and that because of that the immune response of the patient get suppressed, and that will have an opportunity for these fungi or other bacterial infections as an opportunistic infections, and that will cause that particular patient get infected with this phytophthora infection. Okay, we must know what is a normal defense mechanism which is present in our body, especially for the undergraduate students. Okay, so we know, like, whenever there is any injury or any trauma, we know the inflammation starts. Okay, and phagocytosis is one of the most important immune major line of defense against any virus, any fungus, any bacteria. Okay, so there are two types of the very important phagocytic cells: the mononuclear and polymorphonuclear, which are the normal host killers of the mucus by generation of the oxidative metabolites and the cationic peptides. Okay, corticosteroids and the diabetes, both of which are known to suppress the phagocytic function, will cause the acidosis, and that will again enhance the opportunity for these different microorganisms to attack on that particular organ, leading to the infection of maybe bacterial, maybe fungal, or the maybe viral. Okay, if we see the pathogenesis of the pathophysiology of the mucormycosis, there is an angio invasion which is leading to a vessel thrombosis, and after vessel thrombosis there is a tissue necrosis. Okay, so we will see why this particular angio invasion is there in the patient when there is this fungal infection. Okay, so and a very important endothelial cell receptor that is called as the GRP78, which is responsible for these mucorales, which mediates the invasion and the subsequent spread of this particular fungus to different parts of the body. Okay, now this GRP78, which is an endothelial receptor, this fungus is present everywhere in the body. When you are inhaling, it is present in the maxillary sinuses. If you see today's scenario, in most of the patients, it is the maxillary sinuses, like ethmoidal, sphenoidal, frontal, and the maxillary sinuses, from where this infection is spreading to the other parts of the body. Okay, so whenever there is a fungus in this particular region, this endothelial cell receptor will have an angio invasion. Because of the angio invasions, what will happen? There will be a vessel thrombosis. Once the angio invasion will be there, the microvasculature will get disturbed, leading to a vessel thrombosis, and that vessel thrombosis will lead to a necrosis of the tissue, and that's the reason why because of the necrosis there will be a dead necrosed tissue, maybe fascia, maybe a muscle, maybe a nerve, maybe a vessel, and maybe a bone. Okay, and that is how this particular mucormycosis takes place. Okay, now during early stage of the infection, tissue appears normal. Very important, like how the disease progresses. Because of the infection, there will be erythematous phase, maybe with edema or without edema. There will be violaceous appearance of the tissue. Wherever there is an infection, this particular tissue will appear violaceous in nature, and then slowly, subsequently, there will be the erythematous changes leading to a reddish discoloration, leading to a blackish discoloration. There will be a necrotic usher as the blood vessels get thrombosed and the tissue infarction occurs. Okay, this is the classical symptoms whenever the patient gets infected. Okay, what is our aim is to catch the symptoms as early as possible, so that the patient can be prevented from the further complications and the life of that particular patient can be saved. Okay, if we see COVID-19 and iron and the mucormycosis. Okay, now why this particular mucorelate is called as the black fungus? Because the food for the mucorelate is the iron, which is present readily available in the blood. Okay, and that is the reason this fungus looks blackish in color, and because of that it is also called as a black fungus. Okay, so there is a very good paper which was published in 2015 regarding how this particular iron and the mucormycosis have a correlation. And now in COVID-19, what has happened, whenever there is a COVID-19 infection, this SARS-CoV-2 virus, it have a main attack on a beta-2 chain hemoglobins. Okay, we know that hemoglobin is having different structure, and beta-2 chain of the hemoglobin is very, very important. Okay, so this SARS-CoV-2 infection, it will attack the beta-2 chain beta-2 chain of the hemoglobin, leading to breakdown of this beta-2 chain. And because of the breakdown of the beta-2 chain, what happens? We know what is there in the hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is nothing but it's a iron which is present in that, which is responsible for carrying the oxygen from one side to another side. Okay, so whenever there is a breakdown, this particular iron, it will be break down, and then there will be an increased serum ferritin levels. Okay, and if you see, serum ferritin is one of the very important marker which is very helpful in the recovery of the COVID-19 infection patients. Okay, so this is a correlation. Like in most of the patients with the COVID-19, they have an increased serum ferritin levels. Okay, and whenever there is an increased serum ferritin level, the host defense mechanism has dropped down. The fungus is already present in the environment, and then that will have a readily available food in the form of the ferritin, in the form of the iron, and then it will take this opportunity and it will try to grow as fast as possible. Okay, on the top of that, because of the thromboembolism, what we have seen, because of the angio invasion that leads to thromboembolism, that will act as another media for this particular fungus to grow as fast as possible in this particular patient. Okay, steroids play a very important role in the growth of this particular disease. We know like glucocorticoids are inexpensive, they are widely available and have been shown to reduce mortality in hypoxic patients with the COVID-19. Okay, so what I mean to say, the corticosteroids were used like anything, especially in this particular country where this particular drug was a drug of choice for the acute respiratory distress syndrome. It is a life-saving drug. Okay, and the commonly used drugs are the methylprednisolone and the dexamethasone, which are most commonly used steroids during COVID-19. Okay, so what happens whenever you give the glucocorticosteroids like methylprednisolone or dexamethasone, there will be an immune dysregulation. Okay, there will be a whatever the immune system the patient is having. One is because of the COVID-19 virus, and second one is you are adding the steroids, so there will be immune dysregulation. This immune dysregulation, which is caused by the virus, and the use of the concurrent immunomodulator drug like a corticosteroid, further elevate the situation, leading to the depression in the host defense mechanism, making that particular person susceptible for the opportunistic infection, and that patient will have this particular type of infection or fungal infections, what we call it as mucormycosis. I have seen few patients with the candidiasis, and I have seen few patients with aspergillosis also. Again, the iron has a very important role in the pathogenesis of the mucormycosis, which we have already seen in details. I will not go in detail about this, but diabetic ketoacidosis has an elevated level of the available serum iron, likely due to release of the iron from the binding proteins in the presence of the acidosis. Like whenever you are giving corticosteroids, there is sudden rise in the blood sugar levels. Okay, because of this, again it is adding to the release of the iron. Again, it is adding to the acidosis, and whenever there is an acidic acidosis in the body, it will again cause the breakdown of the iron and the other enzymes which are responsible for this particular mucormycosis, leading to that patient getting in this particular type of an infection. Okay. Then again, we saw a correlation of the remdesivir, which was very commonly used, but now ICMR has taken out. Even WHO has mentioned that remdesivir is not having a major effect in the management of the mucormycosis patients. Okay, so we started studying the literature, and we found these two very important papers in 2020, in April 2020, and in another one again in 2020, which were published by Wang et al. And Kwekwen Fan et al. And what they say is there is an evidence of the remdesivir which is causing a thromboembolic events. Okay, so what happens when you are giving this particular anti-viral drug, that is remdesivir, it causes a thromboembolic thromboembolic events in the body, leading to a different venous thrombosis, might be deep venous thrombosis and pulmonary embolism. Okay, so because of this remdesivir, which is inducing the thrombosis, that causes a compromised vasculature, and that compromised vasculature can be an added factor on the top of whatever the pathophysiology we have seen for the mechanism of the infection of this mucormycosis patient. Okay, so these are the few very important points which we learned, which we are still learning in the management of this particular mucormycosis patients. Okay, now we will see what are the types of the rhinocerebral involvement, as I told you rhinocerebral means whenever the face is involved, whenever the craniofacial skeleton is involved, it is called as the rhino orbitocerebral or the rhinocerebral mucormycosis, okay? And it has the 4 subtypes depending upon which part of the face is involved. Rhinocerebral means the sinuses and the nasal cavity. Rhino-orbital means the sinuses and the orbit. Rhino-maxillary means the sinuses and the jaw. And rhino-orbitocerebral means from the sinuses spreading to the orbit. From there, it is spreading to the brain, like cavernous sinus thrombosis or some other dissemination from other different fissures, the superior orbital fissure, and all these things which may lead to the spread of this disease to the base of the skull, to the brain. Okay, so rhino-orbitocerebral mucormycosis, these are very, very important subtypes. As a maxillofacial surgeon, as a general dental surgeon, the most important what we are seeing in our OPDs are the rhino-maxillary, which is most important and very concern for all of us as a dentist, as a maxillofacial surgeon. Okay, then all these types of the mucormycosis are very frequently seen today in our OPDs. But we being a dental surgeons, rhino-maxillary is what we must know in very thoroughly. So we are going to talk about this, what are the symptoms, how to manage all these things in the subsequent slides. Okay, clinical features of the mucormycosis. Rhinocerebral mucormycosis have the onset with a nasal stuffiness. The patient may complain of the epistaxis and the facial pain. Okay, very classical symptoms of this particular type of the mucormycosis is the patient will have the signs and symptoms of the maxillary sinusitis. All of we know like what happens whenever we get a sinusitis. You will feel heaviness in the cheek region. There will be a numbness, a sort of a numbness which you can see here in the cheek region, and then the patient will have few patients will have the epistaxis, bleeding coming from the nose. There will be a facial pain, and then there will be a lateral proptosis and blurring of the vision and the loss of the vision. Black necrotic usher on the nasal turbinates on the palate, very characteristics. Okay, whenever we do an endoscopy, especially the ENT surgeons, they do an endoscopy, the turbinates, they will have a blackish color necrotic usher which is present on that, a characteristic feature of this particular mucormycosis. And then other like cavernous sinus thrombosis, multiple cranial nerve palsies, visual loss, and the frontal lobe abscess. These are all the other clinical features which we can see in this particular rhinocerebral mucormycosis. Okay, but the initial presentation of the patients which are reporting to us today, it is mainly a rhinonasal or the rhinomaxillary. Okay, orbital involvement and the skull base involvement is comparatively in the latter phases if the proper treatment is not given to these kind of the patients. Okay, the percentage of the rhinocerebral mucormycosis is comparatively less, but once it is involved, it is very fatal, and it may get complicated, and the possibility of loss of that particular patient is always there if the proper treatment is not given. Okay, so it's very fatal disease, especially the rhinocerebral mucormycosis. Okay, rhinomaxillary, as I told you, very common for us, and you can see the pictures. I will show you how it looks like. Here, if you see in this, their patient will complain of a pus draining fistulous sinuses on the palatal side, very typical of the mucormycosis involving the maxilla. A characteristic feature of the multiple pus draining sinuses, as you can see here, the sudden patient will complain of a sudden increase in the mobility of the teeth depending upon which part of the maxillary bone is involved. So there will be the most commonly signs and symptoms which we should check in our patients, like mobility of the teeth, pus draining sinuses, mobility of the maxilla, the jaw will be mobile. There will be a palatal necrosis, perforations. Patient will complain of the sinusitis and blackish color discoloration in the nostrils or even on the palatal side. Okay, which you can appreciate in this particular slide. So classical features which you can appreciate: blackish colorish discoloration here. Even sometimes there will be a bone which is exposed, which is yellowish or to blackish in color, and there will be a discoloration or red erythematous discoloration of the palatal mucosa, which subsequently get necrosed, and then there will be an exposure of the bone. Okay, so these are all the clinical signs and symptoms which we being a dental surgeons which being a maxillofacial surgeon need to properly check, properly see, so that we can come to an early diagnosis of this disease called as mucormycosis. Okay. Very frequently done radiograph in our dental clinics is the orthopentanogram. For all those dental practitioners, dear friends, whenever you have these kind of symptoms, or some patients they complain of the complete the history of the pain in the upper maxillary teeth, sometimes in the lower maxillary teeth, my suggestion to all of you is don't pass the time of the patient just by giving some antibiotics, some painkillers, by doing such type of radiographs, because these type of the radiographs may not be very helpful for the proper imaging of whatever the underlying disease is present in this type of patients. Okay, and if we just go on passing the time, the disease may get spread, disseminated to the other parts. So that's the reason why we, the dental surgeons, have a key role in an early diagnosis of this mucormycosis patients. And once you have any doubt, like whenever we see the patients in clinics, suspect them as a case of the mucormycosis, do a proper thorough examination, do proper imaging. Radiograph is not like orthopentanogram or the plain intraoral periapical radiograph is not the proper imaging technique. Okay, you have to go for the MRIs and the CT scans, which are what we call it as the gold standards. I will talk about this in details. Okay, but orthopentanogram may give a moth-eaten appearance, especially you can see here in this maxillary region. Early signs also can be catched if you know how to read the radiograph, also can be catched on these particular radiographs. Okay, the PNS CT in coronal, axial and the sagittal sections are very important to check the involvement of the jaw, involvement of the bones. You can see the coronal, axial and the sagittal sections here, and there is a demarcated maxillary osteomyelitis, what we call it as a sequestrum here. The complete palatal bone here is involved. You can appreciate very well here. Okay, and these are all the pictures of our own patients. Okay, and this is another case where the complete maxillary sinus obliteration was there. Okay, so all these signs can be very well visualized on the CT scan in a two-dimensional view in axial, coronal, sagittal sections, which is mandatory. Hello, am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So if anything is there, just let me know. Okay.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Yeah. And obviously 3D scans also can be helpful. Like you can see here, the sudden loss of the bone on the labial cortical plates, and this is the reason why the teeth usually gets mobile. Okay, like whenever there is an infection, the bone, the labial cortical plate get engulfed by this particular virus, leading to a sudden mobility of the teeth wherever there is an involvement. Okay, but the task forces which are being formed by the different organizations, different government sectors, they say that the MRI is a gold standard for the diagnosis of this disease. Okay, we'll talk about this MRI also. Okay, rhino-orbital mucormycosis, whenever there is an involvement of the orbit, the eyeball, that is called as the rhino-orbital mucormycosis. A classical presentation you can see here, the patient will have the periorbital edema. There is a sudden swelling which is present around the orbits, and then subsequently the patient will have the clinical symptoms which will be involving the pain. There will be a proptosis, like bulging of the eyeball. The patient will have a decrease in the vision, slowly blurring of the vision, leading to a complete loss of the vision, depending upon the presentation, the duration of this particular exposure of the mucor. Okay, so patient may complain of the facial palsy. There will be a frozen orbit. What is this frozen orbit? There will be no movements of the eyeballs, like we know, like how we check for the diplopia. Okay, so there will be no movement of the eyeball, and this is an indication that all the muscles which are responsible for the movement of the eyeball, they are all involved in this particular disease. Then the facial nerve involvement, facial hypoesthesia, orbital compartment syndromes, we know, like the orbital apex syndrome. Then all these things, they can be very well appreciated depending upon the progression of the disease. Okay, even the cavernous sinus thrombosis and all these things needs to be properly examined. Okay, But I told you, like the rhino-orbital mucormycosis involvement is less as compared to, let us, rhino-maxillary and the rhino-nasal. Okay. And as I told you, MRI is the gold standard to evaluate the mucormycosis given by many task forces. And what they suggest is a gadolinium enhancement, magnetic resonance imaging, and the MRI angiography can help us, because if you do an MRI angiography and the gadolinium enhancement, wherever there is an involvement, as you can see here, the complete globe of the eye is involved, which is having an enhancement that the intensified T2 image, which can be very well appreciated. You can see here, and the early diagnosis can be done. MRI, CT, MRI angiography, because we know like this is an invasive disease through a microvasculature through the vessels. So whenever we do an angiography, and there is an angio invasion, there is a thrombosis of the vessel. That particular area will appear dead necrosed on the MRI angiography. Okay, so all these different MRIs, all these different investigations has to be done to come to a proper diagnosis, and they are very important. They are gold standards for managing the patients, because ultimately what is our goal is to do a proper surgical debridement. Whatever the dead necrosed tissue is there, it is, if we remove it properly, the drug will reach there, and the prognosis of the patient will be good. Okay. And other than the imaging, we have to do a biopsy of the involved tissue. The swab of the tissue discharges are unreliable. The CBC, like we know for neutropenia and other things, the complete blood count, arterial blood gas to check whether the patient is in acidosis, and obviously random blood sugar levels. These are the routinely done investigations, okay, which we have to do. Biopsy of the involved tissue is very important and gives us a perfect diagnosis. Okay. But what we are doing in our department, whenever the patient comes to you, we do a KOH mount test. I will show you like what is this KOH mount test. Okay. So what is this KOH mount test? It is nothing but wherever there is a pus draining sinuses, whatever the fluid which is available, even you can take a nasal secretions, whatever the pus is there, it is mounted on a slide. That particular secretion is treated with a potassium hydroxide, which is a strong alkali. What this potassium hydroxide does, it will wash out whatever the proteins are there in and around, and the fungi can be very well examined on a microscope. Okay, this needs not more than 1 to 2 hours, which is routinely done in our oral pathology department, and it is present in 90% of our patients who are reporting to us. Why this is important? It's an early diagnostic test, like we know rapid antigen for your COVID-19. Okay, we have RT-PCR, which is confirmatory, and rapid antigen, which may be false negative. Okay, so KOH mount is readily available, and it gives us a ready diagnosis. Why it is important to diagnose the patient as early as possible with the fungal infection is because this gives us an idea about whether to start the antifungal therapy. Okay, we know like there is a bacterial infection where we give antibiotics, viral infection we give antivirals, like that fungal infections we have to give an antifungal drugs. Okay, this fungal infection will not respond to the antibiotics or the antiviral drugs. Okay, and KOH mount gives us an idea about the starting of your antifungal therapy. Okay, it's well and good. What are the drugs which we use? We are going to see in the few subsequent slides. Okay, and obviously histopathological examination with the PAS 10 or methanium silver nitrate, okay, gives us a clear-cut idea about this fungus. And we can also do a fungal cultures whenever there is a doubt, whenever all these things show the negative test, but you still suspect an infection, you can go for a fungal culture. How we do a blood culture, similarly a fungal culture also can be done. Okay, you can see these are the different microscopic examinations. A direct microscopic examination, whenever a Quatch test is done, you can appreciate here the fungus which appears like optical brightener like Blanco-4 or the Calco-4, which are white in nature. Okay, a classical presentation of this particular hyphae of the mucorlite group, what we call it as this hyphae, they are variable in the width. Okay, they may be variable in the width, non-septate, irregular ribbon-like structures. They are ribbon-like structures. Okay, with the wider angle of the bifurcation. Okay, If you see, these wider angles of the bifurcations are always present in this particular, and periodic acid shift stain or the methanium silver staining, these are very characteristic stainings for the diagnosis of this. This is a silver nitrate staining slide, and this is a routine histopathologic staining slide which is routinely done in our department. You can appreciate a very well appreciate a fungus, hyphae, fungus hyphae on this particular H&E stains. Okay, and this is silver nitrate stain, and this is a Koch mount. I will show you another slide of the Koch mount in the subsequent slide. Okay, now once you come to a diagnosis, okay, as I told you, treat every patient or diagnose every patient with a suspicion today with a mucormycosis or any fungal infection. Okay, once you reach to a diagnosis, we have to do a what we call it as a management, and management of this mucormycosis, rhinocerebral mucormycosis, rhino-orbital-cerebral mucormycosis is a team approach. Okay, so we need a maxillofacial surgeon, we need a general dental surgeon, we need an ophthalmic surgeon, we need an ENT surgeon, we need a neurosurgeon, neurophysician, and ICU intensive care specialist. So everyone has a role to play in this particular team of doctors, a multidisciplinary approach, and everyone has a role. Like ENT will do the debridement of the sinuses by using a functional endoscopic sinus surgery. Ophthalmic will do a debridement around the eyeball, or if needed, exentration of the eyeball. Maxillofacial can very well do a maxillary maxillectomy, partial or complete, and then debridement of the maxillary sinuses. Neurosurgeons, whenever there is an involvement of the brain or the base of the skull. Intensivist, obviously, whenever you need any intensive care. So it's a team approach. Okay, we being a maxillofacial surgeons, what we should supposed to do, that is what I am going to see in the subsequent slides. Okay, so management protocols, Roden et al. In 2006 published the protocol, and he has given 4 steps. Early diagnosis is the key. Reversal of the underlying risk factors, like whenever there is a diabetes, whenever there is any immunocompromised situation, that needs to be reversed. And what is best is whenever there is an increased blood sugar level, try to control whatever the way you have to control the blood sugar level less than 180 to 150 to 180. The random blood sugar has to be there. Okay, surgical debridement and the prompt antifungal therapy. Okay, now reversal of the underlying risk factor. One very important observation I would like to share after seeing these 67 patients over a period of 2 months. What I have seen, once the patient was taken corticosteroids, and the effect of the corticosteroids usually is there for 2 weeks in general, depending upon which steroid is used. Okay, whether it was a methylprednisolone, whether it was a dexamethasone. So on an average, it is around 15 days there is an effect of the corticosteroids. Okay, after 15 days, slowly this effect goes down, and the patient will have the whatever the immunodepression was there, whatever the immunoregulatory system was depressed because of the effect of the steroid, it again kickstarts its immunity. Okay, and that is the reason whatever the patients which we are seeing, very important observation is, except few patients where there were other medically compromised conditions, most of the patients, they have a disease which is defined to an area where the involvement of there. Okay, like say a maxillary sinus was involved, it is defined to the maxillary sinus, or maybe it is involving only only the maxilla. Okay, like if it is a sphenoidal or the ethmoidal sinus, it is defined there, and then it may be involving the medial wall of the orbit or the floor of the orbit. Okay, so once the immunity of the patient kickstarts, the disease gets defined, the host mechanism again start to control the disease. Okay, and that is the reason why it is not spreading very widely. Okay, it is not getting disseminated. I have seen few patients obviously with the dissemination, but that might be this is the observation what I would like to share with all of you. Okay, antifungal therapy, as I told you, like surgical debridement and the medicinal management, these are the 2 important criteria for the management. And antifungal therapy is very, very important. Drug has an important role to play, and different drugs which we can use as an antifungal therapy is like amphotericin B, posaconazole, isaconazole. They are active against mucormycosis. If you all ask me, the candidiasis, the fluconazole is the drug of choice. Like that, amphotericin, posaconazole, and isoconazole are the drug of choice for the mucormycosis, and for the aspergillosis, voriconazole is the drug of choice. Okay, so don't confuse, dear friends. Like just by giving a fluconazole tablet, which we used to give very commonly, very frequently with the patients with the fungal infections, is not a drug of choice for this. We have to give a proper drug so that the recovery of the patient can be assured. Okay, and the amphotericin B is available in different forms. A very simple crude or the most crude form of the amphotericin is a deoxycholate amphotericin, which is very, very effective, but it has many side effects. Okay, like it will have the effect on your kidneys, it will have the effect on your bone marrow. So the judicious selection of the amphotericin is very, very important. Those patients who are young don't have any problems, then like that the deoxycholate amphotericin B is can be used, which is very, very cheaper and which is readily comparatively readily available. A cost of one vial is around 300 rupees, 350 rupees, not more than that. Okay, but if you see the other forms of the amphotericin, like the liposomal amphotericin and the emulsified amphotericin, the dosage is 3 to 5 milligrams per kilogram body weight, which are usually given. So on an average, we consider 60 to 70 kgs the body weight. So on an average, 200 to 250 milligram is the dosage which is required for the liposomal amphotericin or the emulsified amphotericin. And if a combination of the drug therapy is given along with the posaconazole and isoconazole, because the availability of the amphotericin today is comparatively very, very less as compared to that of the other the drugs like posaconazole or isoconazole. So what is our protocol in our institution? Whenever we diagnose a case with a KOH mount, as I told you, all patients of ours go for a KOH mount, and there is a mucor fungus seen, we immediately start the patient with the posaconazole. Okay, and a day before surgery, we start the patient with amphotericin B, which is continued depending upon the need of the patient for 10 to 14 days. Injectable amphotericin is given. It might be a plain amphotericin, it might be a emulsified amphotericin, or it might be a the liposomal amphotericin. Okay, it has fewer side effects, as I told you: nephrotoxicity, anaphylaxis. Few patients have complaint of the fevers with chills and rankers, hypokalemia and hypomagnesemia. Two of our patients complained with had the hypokalemia where the potassium levels had gone down, but then we have to upgrade it with the help of the potassium chloride and other side effects like agranulocytosis, which is very, very less, bone marrow suppression, coagulation defects, renal failure. So these are all the effects of the deoxycholate amphotericin B. Okay, liposomal amphotericin is a drug of choice given in a dosage of 1.5 to 5 milligram per kilogram body weight. So we need on an average 4 to 5 vials, because each vial is 50 milligrams. So on an average 200 milligram, 250 milligram, depending upon the weight, we calculate the dose. So around 4 to 5 vials are required today, and the cost of the therapy every day today is about one vial is about 6 to 7,000 rupees. So around 30 to 35,000 rupees is the cost of the liposomal amphotericin. But this liposomal amphotericin is best, especially in the elder patients, in the comorbid patients, in the patients where the KFT is altered, where there are other problems. The liposomal amphotericin, and whenever the patient can obviously afford, we should give, because it has lesser side effects, and obviously the effects of this particular drug are very, very good for the mucormycosis. I would like to talk about the posaconazole and isoconazole. Posaconazole is available in an oral suspension form and a tablet form. 300 milligrams 2 times a day is a loading dose of this posaconazole tablet, and then after every 24 hours 300 milligram once in a day is the drug is the dosage what we are supposed to give for the patient. In all our patients, our protocol is we will continue these drugs for almost around 80 to 90 days. The first patient which we have operated, he has already taken this drug for more than 65 days. Okay, but still I am continuing this drug because after going through a lot of literature, we came to a conclusion that a long-term posaconazole oral tablet is to be given for all these patients. Okay, and posaconazole, which is available as 100 milligram of tablet. So we have to calculate the dose, like on the very first day, 3 tablets in the morning, 3 tablets in the evening, followed by 3 tablets every day for next almost 80 to 90 days is the protocol what we are following. Okay, different institutions have different protocols, but depending upon your patient, depending upon his condition, we can modify it according to your convenience. Okay, oral suspension, as I mentioned, are also available with the posaconazole, but the drug availability, bioavailability of the oral suspension is comparatively less as compared to that of the tablet form, and that's the reason why tablet form is comparatively more cheaper also as compared to that of the suspensions. Okay, isaconazole is a newer molecule of the posaconazole, which is discovered by the Pfizer, and it's a molecule which is available by Pfizer in United States. Comparatively availability is less, again very costly drug. So, but we have a good experience with amphotericin and the posaconazole. In my patients, I have not used isaconazole, but definitely a second line of drug can be a posaconazole and isaconazole whenever amphotericin B is not available. Okay, so all these things, and again they have some side effects like diarrhea, pyrexia, nausea, and the others like headache, thrombocytopenia, and oral suspensions will have edema, hypokalemia. So all this needs to be monitored whenever the patient is under antifungal therapy. We have to do proper monitoring. What is my suggestion is every third to fourth day, whenever the patient is taking amphotericin, whatever the type of the amphotericin, whether it is the deoxycholate, emulsified, or your liposomal, do the kidney function test after every fourth day. That will guide us, like check the serum create values. That will guide us regarding the modifications of the antifungal drugs. Okay. Surgical debridement is having a key role. Aggressive early surgical debridement of the infectious craniofacial tissue is a cornerstone for the successful treatment of the mucormycosis. All our patients undergo an aggressive surgical debridement in our department, and which is a key for the successful outcome of these tissues. Okay. Now, what happens whenever we do a surgical debridement? What happens? Whatever the dead necrosed tissue I told you, like it might be bone, it might be fascia, it might be muscle, it might be nerve, it might be vessel. Okay. So all these things are removed properly, thoroughly, and we do it till the bleeding is enhanced. Okay, till we get a bleeding point, we go on debriding that particular tissue. Okay, once you get a bleeding point, that means when you give a drug either orally or intravenously, that drug will reach through those vessels. I think there is some disturbance. Can I request to just mute yourself? Hello? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, sir, yes.
Yeah. So we are coming to the conclusion now. So what is important is, like, whenever you do an aggressive surgical debridement and you induce a bleeding, the medication whatever we are giving, it will reach to the area where the infection was there, and whatever the remaining infectious fungus is there, that will be taken care by the drug which we are giving, antifungal drugs, and that is the key in the successful management of this particular patient. Okay, this includes the resection of the involved tissues of the face. I told you, skin, muscle, any part of the nose, like the sinuses, surgical debridement of the maxilla, the ethmoidal sinuses, necrotic tissue, sometimes the zygomatic bone, infratemporal fossa, and if it is the orbital muscles are involved, the orbital exit. So all these things has to be properly planned. So sit together with a multidisciplinary team approach and plan the treatment, what exactly you want to debride in that tissue, depending upon the MRI findings, depending upon the CT findings. We have to take a decision, and that obviously will help your patients for the successful outcome. Okay. Now I would like to discuss few of our cases, and then we'll come to a conclusion. So GDC registry of Government Dental College and Hospital, registry of the mucormycosis. I told you, like, we have seen 67 patients who are registered till today. 33 patients are admitted, and almost 28 patients had undergone a surgical debridement. Patients with a comorbidity, almost 60 patients were having the comorbidity, and all the 67 patients had undergone a corticosteroid therapy. So That's the reason why I told you, like, nowadays there are a lot of patients who a lot of social medias on WhatsApp in our colleagues. Even though the patients who didn't undergo a corticosteroid therapy, they got the mucormycosis. Okay, but in our series, in our registry, all the patients had undergone the steroid therapy. Functional endoscopic surgery with partial maxillectomy was done in 18 patients, and face with a complete maxillectomy was done in 10 patients, and 3 of our patients had undergone a zygomatic bone resection where a zygomatic bone was involved. Okay, I have 3 another patients which we are going to post subsequently on Monday, Tuesday, and as early as possible. Okay, because they have some other medical conditions where once the PAC is cleared, those patients will be posted for the surgery. Okay, so this is in short what is whatever the experience we have in managing these particular cases. Okay, and whatever I shared. Okay, and I told in the beginning, we are still in a phase of learning, because this was not a very common disease which we used to see in our practice of the maxillofacial surgery. Okay, first case, very simple, straightforward case. The patient has recovered very well, and this was our first case, as I told you, like which is almost around 60 days now. The patient came with multiple draining fistulas here, and the mobility of the teeth. Okay, and this was the OPG which was done by some general dental practitioner, and the patient was referred to us. And then we did a CT, as I told you, in coronal, axial, and sagittal, and this is the complete bone of the alveolus with some part of the palate you can appreciate, and the right side maxillary sinus was completely filled with the infection, while the left side maxillary sinus was comparatively clear, not having any sort of infection. Okay, this is another observation what I would like to share. In rhinomaxillary mucormycosis, the patients where the previous sinusitis was not there, like you can see here, the left side was not involved, the left side maxilla was also normal. Okay, while the right side maxillary sinus was involved, the right side maxillary involvement was there. Okay, so we took this patient for a surgical debridement. We open it, you can appreciate here the root pieces which were the roots which were having a bared bone, and then after extraction the alveolectomy was done, or partial maxillectomy was done, and you can appreciate here, and the complete sinus debridement was done, and the suturing was done. Okay, the patient was under under antifungal therapy. I would like to share just a video for the undergraduate students, like how it looks when you open up how it looks when you open up just a video, like the complete maxillary mobility is there. Okay, so whenever you open up that particular site for a surgery, and you can appreciate the complete maxillary mobility is there. Okay, so this is the classical symptom which we should check in most of our patients. Okay, and then this is a sequestrum, which you can see here. Sequestrectomy was done, palatal bone and the involved teeth were done, and this is a histopathological examination which give a confirmatory diagnosis of the fungal hyphae. As you can see here, a ribbon-like structure which can be very well appreciated in a diagnosis of the mucormycosis. Okay, and this is almost 40 days after, you can see a completely healed. And when patient came for the last follow-up around 15 days back, I requested the patient, can you help us in spreading a positive message in the society by giving whatever the experience you had, because the patient today who are coming to us, they are very panicked, they are very well afraid because of lot of media, there is a lot of bombarding in the media. Okay, news media, e-media, then the print media, and because of that I requested the patient to give something, a positive note for this particular, and then the patient has agreed, and then she came in front of the print media, and then she gave a very positive impact, and where she said, like, you can get recovered from this particular disease. Okay, that is what we are supposed to do for the social awareness also. Okay, whatever the experience we have to share with the people, so that there will not be a panic, there will not be havoc, and the patients will have comparatively a better outcome. Okay, and this is, you can appreciate the post-operative CT, the pre here, the post, after doing a Caldwell-Luck and a maxillectomy, here you can appreciate the complete sinus is free of the disease, and here you can appreciate the maxillary involvement, and which was totally removed. And the patient had undergone the gadolinium enhancement scan also, and the reports of the scan also said that the patient is not having any active infection at the moment. Okay, so still I told you, like, I am going to continue the posaconazole tablet for next another maybe a month, and then we are going to stop this particular treatment. Okay, so, and this is the next patient. You can appreciate the complete ethmoidal, sphenoidal sinuses are involved, along with the maxillary sinus, the medial wall of the orbit, and the floor of the orbit. So this is definitely a case which has to go for functional endoscopic surgery, and the ENT surgeons needs to be involved in this, and this is what the ENT surgeons do. They do a functional endoscopic sinus surgery, and the debridement of the sphenoidal, ethmoidal sinuses and the maxillary sinuses is done. You can appreciate, and very well the base of the skull after debridement you can see very well. This is just for the knowledge, like how the functional endoscopic sinus surgery is done. This surgery is not done by me and Gaurav Agrawal, who is our ENT surgeon, or it is done in our ENT departments. Okay, so like what I mean to say, a multidisciplinary team approach, and you can appreciate. Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah, and this is exactly after debridement by doing a FES phase. You can appreciate the medial wall of the orbit was removed, and this is the base of the skull, and the complete thorough debridement needs to be done by FESS surgery, functional endoscopic sinus surgery. Okay. The next case, we did the similar case with a maxillary involvement. You can appreciate here mobility of the teeth, first draining sinuses. We did the first surgery, the CT involving the maxillary sinus. We did a first surgery where the complete partial maxillectomy, premaxilla was involved, whatever the bone was involved, and the sinus debridement was done. But this is, like you can see here, the surgical intra suturing was done. But after 8 days, when patient came for a checkup, patient had the complaint of the pain in the zygomatic bone. So we picked up this particular sign, what patient told us. We did another scan, and when we did another scan, there was this is the excised specimen, as you can see, and this is the histopathological examination done in our department of oral pathology by our professor of pathology, Dr. Gosavi ma'am. And then after 8 days, when patient reported, as I told you, we did a second scan where patient was having complaint of the pain in the cheek, and you can appreciate this zygomatic bone, it was totally involved. Okay, so initially this finding was not seen on the scans when we operated this patient, but within 8 days this disease spread like anything. As I told you, like the disease spreads like a malignancy. Okay, and it has involved the zygomatic bone and the other sinuses like ethmoidal and the sphenoidal sinuses. So we did the Weber-Ferguson with Lynch extension. A zygomatic bone was excised in toto. We did a zygomatic bone osteotomy. Whatever the floor of the orbit was involved, and the face surgery was done to clear the ethmoidal and the sphenoidal sinuses. And this is, you can see the opposite side maxillary sinus was also debrided properly, and then the patient was given the antifungal, and you can see here the suturing was done. We do a nasal packing. The zygomatic bone, which was again sent for the histopathology, turned out to be osteomyelitis of the zygoma because of the mucormycosis. And then the patient is under recovery phase. Almost again 1.5 months have been done. What I mean to say, you have to be very prompt in picking up the signs and the symptoms, what the patient says. Okay, it is said that listen to the patient, he is telling you the diagnosis. Very, very important phrase. My dear friends, keep it in mind. You listen to the patient properly. He himself is telling you what is the problem he is having. He is trying to give you a diagnosis. So that is a key point for the undergraduate students. Proper history and listening to the patient is very, very important. Okay, and the patient is now doing very, very well. We did an MRI scan, check MRI scan after 15-20 days, but patient is under posaconazole therapy. whatever the patients we used to see about a month back, they were having all the diabetes and undergone COVID infection with the steroid treatment. But then suddenly a young man, around 22 years old boy, who reported to our OPD with a history of COVID-19, had undergone a corticosteroid therapy, who was not diabetic previously, okay, and was diagnosed a case of mucormycosis. As you can see here, multiple draining sinuses involving the maxillary teeth. So we did a KOH mount. This is a KOH mount, a classical fungal hyphae, and patient was started with the antifungal. We did a scans, and you can appreciate the complete maxillary sinus was filled on the involved side and on both the sides rather. And this is the sequestered bone of the premaxilla, which we can appreciate here. Okay, so we posted the surgery, patient for surgery. Another important thing what I would like to mention is, every patient, because the patient had history of COVID-19, it is better to get the chest of the patient evaluated. At least you do a PA chest X-ray, because the patient may have the fibrosis of the lungs, and it is very, very important for planning the general anesthesia. The anesthetist usually will advise you a PA chest, in few patients the HRCT also. Okay, so these are all very important findings, and you can appreciate we operated the patient, and then the patient is under treatment and under follow-up. Okay, and another case, as I told you, like I have seen a case of aspergillosis also. This was a diagnosed case of aspergillosis, very recently operated in a few days back, and the biopsy was done previously, and then we operated. You can appreciate this is a sequestered bone of the mandible. All the teeth were involved, and this is a clear the bone, like only the cortical bone is there, the base of the mandible, the mandibular labial and the buccal cortical plate, and some lingual cortical plate. Okay, and when we open this particular bone, this particular patient, for the mandible, our observation was the inferior alveolar artery was totally thrombosed. Okay, and this is already a case of diagnosed case of the aspergillosis, you can see. And I have already told you, like the drug of choice for the aspergillosis is the tablet voriconazole, 6 milligram per kilogram body weight twice a day, and then followed by, that is a loading dose, voriconazole 4 milligram per kilogram body weight twice a day for the next 10 days. This is the recommended dose by the infectious guidelines by the American Association. So we started with the voriconazole tablet, 6 milligrams, and it comes to be 2 tablets 2 times a day, because the tablet comes about 300 milligrams. Okay, and then followed by 1.5 tablet in the morning and 1.5 tablet in the evening for the next 10 days. The patient is under voriconazole drug therapy. Okay, and there are few patients who are coming up with a mixed fungal infection also, aspergillosis along with the fungal hyphae of the mucormycosis. Okay, so combination of the drug therapy also needed to be. So proper histopathological examination, proper histopathological backup is very, very important to plan the antifungal therapy in this particular, what we call it as an oral epidemic of the mucormycosis. Okay, and I told you, like 1 or 2 of patients of ours get complicated. One patient had spread towards the cavernous sinus. Patient was referred to the neurosurgery. Another patient had a dissemination to the lung, as you can see here. In the lung, there is a focus of the mucus. The CVTS surgeon saw the patient and they said to continue with the amphotericin B. The patient is still undergoing amphotericin B almost more than 20 days. In this type of the patients, we have to give a long-term amphotericin B treatment for maybe a month, 1.5, and then this particular disease is getting cured, and we'll do a subsequent scans, and then accordingly the treatment will be continued for these patients. Okay, now very important, dear my friends, the prognosis of this disease depends upon the rapidity of the diagnosis and the treatment and the site of the infection, the patient's underlying condition and the degree of immunosuppression, the overall mortality rate, which is approximately 50%, as I told you in the beginning, and different papers have given a different mortality rate ranging from 48 to 50%, and early identification and the treatment can definitely lead for a better outcome in this particular type of the fungal infection called mucormycosis. What are the preventive measures which we are supposed to take? we are facing this post-corona mucormycosis surge like never seen before. Mucor is fatal. It is financially and mentally draining condition. Because why mentally? Because patient had already undergone a COVID infection, so he was already under a lot of mental pressure, and another infection on the top of that, a mucormycosis. Because the cost of the drug therapy itself is very very high, so he was financially also down. So mucor is fatal, financially and mentally draining condition. Use of the steroid in minimum doses for minimum duration whenever indicated is a key for the post covid for the covid patient management. And keep the red blood the random blood sugars, as I told you, always less than 180 to 200. And do whatever you want, like you give an insulin, whatever the dosage, give the oral hypoglycemic drugs, but the blood sugar should not cross more than 200. That is the key in the management of this particular disease. Okay. And a statement, a sort of phrase what we have framed: pick it up fast, save precious life. Okay, this is a word which we are using to promote, to do a publicity. Pick it up fast, save a precious life. We are trying to make the people aware about the disease. We are trying to train the general dental surgeons for the early diagnosis, so that the early referral can be done and the life, the precious life, can be saved. Okay, patients who need ventilation, we should use a disposable oxygen delivery devices, use of the sterile water in the humidifiers, because they are also supposed to be one of the causative factors, for can be one of the causative factors. Okay, water to be changed in the humidifier every frequently. Sterile water needs to be used, and proper disinfection protocols of the ventilatory equipments for the patients who need ventilation has to be done, so that the prevention of this disease can be done. As it is always said that prevention is better than cure. We can save the patient's life, we can save the patient from getting infected, and we can save the patient from getting disabled, where in few patients the eyeball was also exented, where in few patients the complete maxilla was removed, or the partial maxilla was removed. Because now for the rehabilitation of this patient will be a second challenge for all of us, especially the prosthodontic team. Okay, so we have to think in that direction also. So rehabilitation also will be very very challenging in all these patients. Okay, so to conclude, my dear friends, mucormycosis is frequently a life threatening infection. Prognosis of the disease depends upon underlying patient's condition, type of the fungus, and the body site affected. Aggressive surgical debridement, long-term antifungal drug therapy, and restoring the patient's immunity are the key factors for the management of this particular patient. We have seen about debridement, antifungal therapy, and the restoring the immunity by giving the different medications, multivitamins, vitamin E, then the vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin C. All these will have a very very vital important role in the improving the immunity, so that the life, this precious life, can be saved. Okay, and like as I would like to mention, the government dental college is always at a forefront for such type of the diseases, managing the diseases. And we are in a process to establish a super specialty craniomaxillofacial surgery center in a subsequent near future, where all these craniomaxillofacial surgeries will be done. And we got good funding from the government of Maharashtra for this particular center. Okay, and this is our team of maxillofacial surgery. Obviously this was little bit older picture, so we have the residents who keep on changing, but we have a team of good surgeons and anesthesists. We have associate professor in anesthesia and the lecturer in anesthesia, and we have 2 associate professors and 3 lecturers and 4 lecturers who are working with us tirelessly in managing this, what we call it as the mucormycosis, oral endemic or post-COVID mucormycosis treatment. Thank you so much. Let us all make this particular world better. Thank you for giving me an opportunity, and thank you all for your participation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. It was indeed an excellent presentation and very informative. And of course, I guess all of them who have attended here
Thank you, sir.
have benefited from this webinar session. and your efforts and dedication is really appreciable, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Varun. Thank you so much.
Any questions?
If any questions are there, I'll be happy to take.
Yeah, any questions can be put up in the chat box. Anybody has any questions can just
If any, even if any suggestions are also there, they are welcome, because
yeah, thank you so much, sir.
Good morning, sir.
good morning.
Ma'am, I have a question. Can I ask?
Yeah, please go ahead, Dr. Jayendra.
Yeah. Dr. Abhay, sir, it was really informative lecture
Thank you.
session about this mucormycosis.
Thank you.
And sir, I am a professor at College of Dental Science, Amagat,
Yeah.
Dr. Jayendra Purohit.
Yeah. Thank you.
And sir, I have one or two questions is there.
Right.
So one is that you show one slide that you did one mucor case on the mandible, isn't it?
That was
And,
a case of aspergillosis.
Aspergillosis.
That was not a
Okay, sir.
mucormycosis.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, sir,
See,
you said
in my 67 patients of mucormycosis, I have not seen a single patient where there is an involvement of the mandible. Okay.
yes, sir.
But there are a few cases. Few of our colleagues have seen cases where the mandibular involvement because of the mucor is also there. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Right.
And you said, sir, that there was the mandibular nerve was thrombosed,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
So, what are the how we can go ahead surgically when we treat?
I told you in the beginning only when we were talking. You go debriding that particular tissue till you will get a bleeding points. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So till the time you will get a bleeding point, you go on debriding and debridement. That's all. Okay. That is the only key in managing this kind of patients, and that will enhance the drug delivery to the site where the infection is there.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
And what about the post surgical complications, sir? Any paresthesia, numbness? Because
Obviously,
we cut
there
the
will
mental
be.
nerve.
The patient was already having paresthesia.
Okay, sir.
Pre-operatively only because the nerve was totally involved in the disease, so patient was already having paresthesia.
Okay, sir. Thank you. And second question, sir, when we operate on maxilla,
Right.
if we do partial maxillectomy or segmental or full maxillectomy, do you prefer to close that flap in 2-layer or single layer?
2-layer
Like
means
suppose sometimes we took buccal pad of fat as a first layer and then we close the mucosa.
No.
So what is your preference?
Actually, I don't want a healthy tissue to come in a diseased tissue. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So by adding say buccal fat of pad, you are inviting sowers for the fungus if any remnant is there. A ready-made food where it will again grow. Okay.
Okay,
So the best thing is whatever the remaining tissue is there and which is healthy, you just go on closing it. That's all. Okay.
Okay. So you preferred only one layer.
Yeah. What we are doing is in all our patients, we are trying to preserve the zygomatic bone, because I told you, like, the second phase will be the rehabilitation of all these patients. All right.
Yes.
So maybe after 6 months, when the patient will come where the complete maxillectomy is done, you cannot have an option of giving a denture because there is no bone. So we are trying to spare the zygomatic bone, where we think that we should do a quad zygoma, 2 zygomatic implants on right and the left, and then some sort of prosthesis can be given to these patients. Okay, this is there in our mind, but not yet. It's not very preliminary to talk about all these things. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you, sir. You cleared my doubt.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, sir, for sharing your experience with us. Thank you, sir.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
Sir, what is the role of culture media in investigation?
Culture media, we have to do a blood culture for this fungus. Okay, that will just see, like I told you, like when the KOH mount is not positive, you cannot see anything on the histopathology also, even after doing histopathologically. But still, you suspect that there is a kind of infection. Might be a bacterial infection, might be a fungal infection. So you have to do. You're talking about the culture means what? The culture, blood culture you're talking about, or the culture from the pus, or?
No, sir, the role of culture media, like culture is beneficial in case of mucormycosis or not. We should go for culture or not?
Obviously, the culture also will give you an idea about it. Will also grow a fungus when it is properly done.
But sir, early diagnosis is required, no? So we can't wait for culture, no?
I
Sir?
told you, the early diagnosis, you do a KOH test.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
KOH is done in 1.5 to 2 hours, not more than that. Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah. Please.
Yeah, so first of all, sir, thank you for sharing your valuable knowledge with this excellent presentation. Sir, I just have one small doubt.
Yeah.
In the early slides of your presentation, you just mentioned that because of the mutant strains which has been observed in the second wave of this SARS-CoV-2 virus,
Yeah.
we are seeing a lot of cases of mucormycosis.
Right.
So my doubt is, do you have any data in which the Western countries have also reported such amount of cases? Why
No,
it's more
actually,
prevalent in India?
yeah, that's what. Actually, whatever the knowledge I have, there were cases of the mucor or the fungal infection in the Western countries also, but they were not this many what we are seeing, not in such a large number. Okay, maybe 1 or 2 cases they have seen probably in already medically compromised patients who were having the other systemic problems. There were the patients with the mucor and other fungal infections, but not in a whatever the scale which we are seeing today. Okay, so it was not that like that.
Right, sir. And sir, just now someone just asked a question regarding the culture media. Is it true that from the culture media probably we'll come to know about the type of the fungus which has been involved?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe your treatment plan also might change the medical line of treatment depending upon which type of fungus you're getting in the culture media?
See, the type of the fungus, as I told you, is best appreciated on the histopathological examination. Okay.
But sir, the histopathology is coming negative. So as you said, in some specimen, it does not come as a positive for
No.
mucormycosis.
In our patients, only one patient or two where the histopathology is negative. Okay, but the KOH mount
Right.
was positive in that patient.
Right, sir.
Right.
So maybe we can, for the diagnostic or to get a confirmatory diagnosis, I think all the three investigation is a must, like KOH, culture
See,
media, and histopath.
what is that? See, how we should once the patient comes, if you can
Right,
do
sir.
okay, KOH mount, do it. Okay, like
Right, sir.
whatever the
Correct.
fluid is there. Okay, right.
Correct.
Okay, even KOH mount can be done from say you are debriding the maxillary sinus, so you just take out the maxillary sinus lining and ask your
Right, sir.
pathologist. They will do the KOH mount from that also. Okay, one way.
Correct, sir.
Okay, once the KOH is done, if it is well and good, the fungus is seen. Okay, that's well and good. Okay, if it is not seen, you do for the histopathology, then different stainings as I have mentioned, methanium silver, then the H&E stains and all these things. Okay, and
Right, sir.
and in very few, maybe 1 or 2% of the patients which probably we are already under antifungal therapy, the possibility of this histopathology showing the fungal the hyphae is may not be there. Okay.
Right, sir.
Yeah.
And sir, one last question. Do you recommend your every patient to go for a post-op scan despite if the patient are not having any symptoms? Like, does it really recommended if you advise
Actually,
a post-op scan after surgery?
actually, I had a meeting we had a meeting with task force for Maharashtra for mucormycosis and COVID-19, and I asked them the similar question, like, sir, do you have any guidelines when you can say the patient is mucor free? Okay.
Correct.
So the similar, like they were also a little bit. So they were, but what I think, in my opinion, if the patient is complaining of any symptoms or signs, then you do the scans for that patient. Okay. So no,
Right,
like
sir.
what we say, no news for us is a good news from the patient side. Okay.
Correct,
All
sir.
right. So that is the criteria what we are following in our department. But initially, few patients, like I have shown you 1 or 2 patients, maybe 3-4 patients. We did this just to check whether actually our treatment is working or not. Okay.
Correct.
And
Correct,
if you see in GDC, most of the patients, they are not that socioeconomically sound. Okay. And
Right,
doing
sir.
a gadolinium enhancement scan, it costs around 10 to 12,000 rupees. Okay. So those who
Right, sir.
afford, definitely we can do it after a month or 2. But if you want to really stop the antifungal therapy after 3 months, always recommended to do the scanning and then take a decision regarding the stoppage of the antifungal therapy. Okay, that is
Correct,
what
sir.
that's what I told you. Like after 3 months, I will get a scan, and then if everything is all right, I'm going to stop the scan for that patient. Stop the posoconazole tablet for that patient. Okay.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Because, sir, actually, because in a few of my patients which I have observed, like if I have devised an post-op surgery, post-surgery scans, say after 7th or 10th day, or now because of the surgical induced inflammation,
Yeah, you will
it
see
sometimes
the
shows
tissue.
that,
Yeah.
so it might
You,
just lead to a misguide to the
exactly.
patient that you had not removed the tissue properly or that something has
Yeah.
been left behind.
So yeah. So best
So this
guide
is
is like whenever you want to discharge your patient, few recommendations are like you do a CRP of the patient. Okay.
right, sir.
All right. If it is raised, then you think about some residual infection which is there. Okay. Okay.
Correct,
And
sir.
then that will, if patient is having any complaint, as I told you, no news is a good news. But if patient is having any complaint, further evaluate it. If any residual is there or if any secondaries, because now after 60 days, when what we are seeing, there are few patients who are coming with the secondaries, like previously operated for the functional endoscopic surgery, the sinuses were debrided, but they are coming to us after 1.5 months for the maxillary involvement now. Okay.
Right, sir.
So it's like we are all in learning phase. That's the reason why I told you in the beginning of it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And sir, just a small one more query I have. Sorry to ask you multiple questions.
It's okay.
Sir, just like, so like, what is the approach when the lesion is extending up to the floor of the orbit and not involving the orbit? Like, how do you plan for
You do a
the
functional endoscopic surgical procedure.
to approach the floor of the orbit?
Yeah, floor of the orbit, and even your the medial wall of the orbit also.
Okay, because to Caldwell look, sir, I really doubt that we
Obviously,
can go
Caldwell
to.
lock also can be done. Okay.
Right, sir. So you just trim off the floor of the orbit or muscle which are involved, or
Muscle if involved, it is better. I don't do it. I will call the ophthalmic surgeon.
right, sir. Okay, sir.
That
Okay,
is
thank
not
you
my
so much,
domain.
sir.
I told you.
Yes, sir. Yes. Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Any more
Hello,
questions?
sir.
Yes.
Sir, I have a question. Like all the patients, what you have, those are post-COVID patient. What if the patient which is under the treatment or the patient is COVID positive, and how will you approach for the patient with those along with mucormycosis?
Yeah, actually, I didn't get any patients who is COVID positive and got a mucormycosis. Most of the patients who came to us, they were post-COVID after 15 days, 10 days. Okay, because most of the referral which is coming to us is from the general dental practitioners. All right. Okay, but in our wards in medical college, there are few patients. We have seen them with who are under COVID treatment and they got some sort of fungal infections. So we start like we have advised them to start with the antifungal therapy. Okay, and once they will have the symptoms which are less, because the priority is the other thing, like if there are HRCT score is more, the other markers are increased, so we have to get that settled down also. Okay, that is another important thing what we have to consider while planning those patients before they are taken for the surgical debridement.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Is there any more questions?
Abhay sir, I have one more question.
Yeah.
Sir, after debridement, do you prefer to use locally any gel, amphotericin B gel?
We use amphotericin this thing. If it is a powder form, we dissolve in a solution like normal saline, and then along with the lignocaine jelly, we prepare the pack with the nasal packs. What we are giving, we do a nasal antrostomy and we took the nasal packs out from the nose, and we totally completely pack the maxillary sinuses with this particular type of the packing. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Few people they are using the irrigations also, but what I learn or what I read, irrigating with amphotericin B may quite a granulomatous changes in the tissue, which is in a healing phase. Okay, so we don't want that. Okay, So proper thorough debridement, irrigation with the normal saline, irrigate with the betadine, again irrigate with the normal saline, do packing with a tape gauze which is soaked with a lignocaine jelly and an amphotericin which is dissolved in a normal saline, and then after 48 hours this pack is removed.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay. Considering the time constraint and the busy schedule of sir, is there any questions that we can take up in the WhatsApp chat, and then we can get the clarifications? And we extremely apologize, sir, for the technical error and the delay which affected your busy schedule as well. We are extremely sorry for that. And we would just move ahead for the vote of thanks. Over to you, Dr. Parth.
Thank you, ma'am. So, good, good myself, Dr. Parth. I'm here to present Dr. Science. It's an honor to have been asked for offer a vote of thanks on the occasion of this webinar series of the College of Dental Sciences and Hospital. On behalf of College of Dental Science and the hospital and the entire team of all surgery, I am express heartily gratitude to our speaker, Dr. Abhay Thakkar sir, who gave his vital time from his busy schedule and setting the graceful words with us into webinar on mucormycosis, which is a current red hot topic in this pandemic situation. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Today's webinar was full of knowledge and interesting things. It gave insight to our topic and also shared some interesting facts. I would also like to thank our management, KJ TB Trust Hospital, our Dean, Dr. Rosa Kanapar, our Vice Dean and Campus Director, Dr. Pankaj Bai, and also the staff and committee member. I also would like to thank our organizing chairman, host, and Dr. Shahendra Purohit and Dr. Dhamma Chandrana. Vote of thanks cannot be finished without thanking all the participants. So, thank you the participants to join with us in this webinar. We thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for your.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. Huh?
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take your leave. Huh? If any questions are there, just you can pass it on to my WhatsApp.
Yeah,
huh? Okay, madam. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Okay. Thank you so. Thank you for your patience.